Hello you sex beast and welcome back to War Thunder. Yes, my name is MikeGoesBoom and do not adjust your settings. You are indeed seeing an arcade tank gameplay? What? Mike, are you out of your mind? No. Indeed, this is going to be a video discussing my return to arcade tank mode, not aircraft. We're going to go over that a little bit later on in the video, but arcade tank mode, why I've returned to arcade tank mode, and why you should too. Before we start off with the main video, you've heard all the fuck-ups that YouTube has been doing over the past couple of weeks, and whilst I really don't like doing this, I'm going to ask you the following thing. If you do stay until the end of the video, and if you do find this video great, then do leave a like rating down below, since it does help the channel out quite a lot now. But, begging for likes and clickbaiting to the side, let's talk about my experiences with Tank Arcade and why I really returned to arcade mode for tanks. Now, before we go on, and if you are confused about why I'm talking about Tank Arcade and Tank Realistic mode, essentially I've been a Tank Realistic mode player for a very long time, over 1 year now, maybe 2 years even. So I've pretty much just skipped arcade for a long time. I didn't play arcade until like months in succession. So it is quite surprising to see someone like me, someone who has gone to RB, to actually return back to arcade, because it seems to be rather rare. Most people have this natural evolution of when they play War Thunder, of starting out with arcades and then moving either onto RB or even sim mode. Even though the sim community is kind of dead in War Thunder right now, most people tend to naturally evolve into RB mode and stay there, since there's also a little bit of elitism going on with the community, but that's a topic for another video. So why exactly did I have the brilliantly stupid idea to go back to AB, to even give it a try? You see, I am a mostly just tier 5 player, both in aircraft, both in tanks. I tend to stick around tier 5, maybe dip down to tier 4 sometimes, but I mostly tend to stick around tier 5. I just like the top end game of War Thunder, right? The problem is, tier 5 realistic is kind of a massive shitstorm right now. Since the introduction of ATGM tanks, it's been rather frustrating. ATGM tanks have the incredibly menacing power to snipe you from across the map with perfect aim, having no bullet drop, although the rockets do take some time to reach you. It doesn't really matter when you're driving a slow and big tank, they can still hit you very easily. They can one-shot you with a massive damage, and they can fire from behind cover, through a bush, essentially in a way that you will never even see where they are. And instead, ATGMs tend to dominate wide open maps such as Hütgen Forest, where they can fire from their spawn directly into your spawn without you being able to do anything about it. Or maps like El Alamein in the dunes, where they can literally fire across 2, 3, 4 kilometers of direct line of sight into the enemy spawn without ever getting hit back. It's just ATGMs have kind of broken tier 5 RB, and I know this sounds kind of hypocritical. Before ATGMs came out, and even during the first couple of weeks when ATGMs were out, I personally said that ATGMs weren't all that bad. Even in my 1.59 rant video, I said that ATGMs weren't all that bad, because I didn't quite know how powerful they actually were. I didn't know that you could fight them from behind cover. I didn't know that the ATGM missiles themselves are pretty much indestructible. You can, like, seriously, you can shoot an ATGM tank missile whilst it's still on the launcher with a 120mm shell, heat FS shell, and it won't detonate. Heck, it won't even do anything. It will still be able to fire and kill you in return. So tanks, especially like the IT-1, which is very stealthy and has very weird damage models, where it seems to be mostly invulnerable to one-shot kills, they just ruin Tank RB. But that's not really the only issue. I mean, if that was the only issue, I could simply go back to tier 4, even tier 3, right? And just avoid ATGMs altogether. But there are a couple more problems. Over the past couple of weeks, I've just been, well, months really, I've been just getting more tired and more tired each and every day with all the schoolwork going on, all the stress in real life, all the worries about the channel, just everything. So when I come home, and the only time I can really play War Thunder is when I'm chilling out in the evening. Even now, as I'm recording this video, it's about 10 PM, so yeah, I'm kind of a night owl. My days tend to be very long. But when I sit down on PC at this kind of hour, and when I'm back from class and I'm very tired, I tend to have a real issue with actually paying attention to anything and being able to see in great detail. My eyesight isn't the best anymore, if it makes any sense. And sadly, that's kind of how you have to play Tank RB. In Tank RB, you have to either play very defensively, just camping in a corner somewhere, camping in the bush and waiting for the enemy to come you. Or, if you want to be a better player and you want to actually advance, get some points, play the objective, get lots of kill streaks, you have to pay a great deal of attention to what's going on your screen. And sadly, I just cannot do that anymore. I come home tired, and I'm playing Tank RB, and I'm just finding myself looking to my second screen, watching a YouTube video at the same time, and then I get a one-shot from across the map, because I did not see the enemy tank. Next up, the game meter in Tank RB, especially tier 5, kind of favors very heavily the fast fire rate and high mobility type of tanks. Tanks like the Leopard, which arguably are probably the best tank in the game, at least when it comes to realistic mode. And tanks that rely on their armor and suffer from the drawbacks of the armor, namely the weight, they don't really have a place in tier 5 RB. Tanks like the mouse, for example. The mouse is kind of a running meme. Now, before you get all riled up, I know there are some people that can make the mouse work. I know the mouse has some uses in certain degrees. I know the mouse can't really be one shot. I know the mouse is a force to reckon with in squads. But for the most part, if you're playing solo, the mouse isn't the best tank you can drive out there. It's not going to be the tank you get the highest kill streaks with or the best games with, if that makes any sense. That generally tends to be reserved to tanks like the Leopard, right? Tanks like the Chieftain, which have very poor mobility, now even though they have a very fast fire rate, and the armor can help, at least the turret is sloped in a way that can't even bounce some heat FS shells. In most cases, even that isn't going to help you, especially if they can hit your hull. Tanks like the T-62, which was a great overall platform, the gun just has a 50% longer reload than its direct opposition, the Leopard and Chieftain, so even that doesn't tend to be so good in RB. It definitely favors, as I said before, the light, fast, stealthy tank that can, well, just dish out fire from the flanks. So, this leads me to the last point, which is when exactly I switched over to arcades. I was playing my T-62. I don't know why I put it to my head that I want to unlock the IS-3 or IS-4, one of those two. I want to unlock one of those two and give it a try. I think it was the IS-3. I think it was the IS-3. So, I'm using my T-62, and yes, I know. How does he have the T-62 if he doesn't have the IS-3? Gaijin. Just magic word, Gaijin, alright? But I have the T-62, I have a talisman on it, and as such I'm using it to run through my Soviet tank tree. But as I said before, in RB it's not really all that fun, especially when you get flanked by Leopards every single match, especially when you get hit by ATGMs every single match. So one match I just fucking rage quit and just gave AB a spin for the hell of it, really. It was just, fuck RB, I'm so mad I don't even care anymore, let's try arcade. And shit, it surprised me. Where I was just raging in the past 5 games in RB, when I went to arcade, the very first game I had in arcade was an absolute masterpiece of fun. I just had so much fun playing the tank in AB. One of the biggest things that immediately jumps to mind when you switch back to AB is the difference in how the tanks handle, really. Whereas in RB the tank, the T-62 especially, is kind of sluggish. In AB it just zips around the map. It just really zips around the map, and it's really fun to drive. The slower fire rate doesn't really disadvantage you that much, since you can use cover actually more effectively in AB, since you can actually see where the enemy is, and as such you can position yourself in cover accordingly to block as many line of sights to you as you can. It's just fun. It's just really just fun. Now in EB, there are a couple of different things. As I mentioned before, the tanks are much more maneuverable. This is down to the engines getting a big boost in horsepower in arcade mode. Other than that, the turrets also traverse much faster. They have the gun has a much faster vertical traverse, which on some tanks is kind of what ruins them. For example, the first Leopard doesn't have a stabilizer, so it oftentimes I've died trying to brake, having my tank dip down, and then the gun not being able to follow through just in time to get my shot off. In arcades, that's not really a problem. It's essentially just consider every tank in arcade to have a stabilizer by itself. Now ATGMs are still kind of a problem, right? Like they can still fire from behind cover, they can still one-shot you without you even being able to do anything against them. But at least you know where they are. That's the thing, since the nameplates do pop up in most cases, unless they are extremely long ranges, hiding very well or hiding behind cover perfectly, you are going to know where the tanks are, where the ATGMs are, and as such you can respond accordingly, driving through cover, positioning yourself accordingly to not get hit by those ATGMs. Honestly, I've been hit less by ATGMs in AB mode than I've ever been in RB mode. Tanks with armor, like I said before, the TC2 and the Chieftain actually seem to have a proper use in AB. I know. It seems like less people are actually firing heat FS shells in arcade mode. My theory is that is down due to the hit prediction thingy, the cross, essentially the drop marker, right? And since thanks to that, it's much easier to aim for weak spots, and as such, people don't tend to waste their money, their silver lines on heat FS shells. They tend to fire APS shells much more frequently. And tanks like the 62 and the Chieftain can bounce those, so it makes them much more viable to play arcade with. Now this goes both ways. This is kind of a double-sided coin, right? At the same time, whilst tanks that focus on their armor have an advantage in AB over RB, since less people seem to be firing the high pen heat FS shells, at the same time tanks that have no armor and recurrent and just just rely on their stealth tend to be fucked in AB mode. Tanks like Leopards, whilst they are one of the best tanks, if not the best tank in realistic mode, they are a tank you don't really see all too often in arcade mode, because they just aren't all that great. They aren't very mobile compared to other tanks, at least whilst they are still mobile, I should probably rephrase this. Whilst they are still mobile, they don't get the same mobility gains that all their enemies do, so it's kind of neglected, right? And their stealth is non-existent, since no matter where they are, people are going to know where they are, right? So tanks with armor definitely have a much easier time, much better time playing in arcade mode. Now arcade matches tend to be a bit more fast-paced, and you always get free spawns, which is also another thing I actually quite like. One of the issues that many people have when going to realistic tank mode is that, well, you can be one-shot, you can literally be one-shot from a tank you never saw, not knowing what you are doing really, and then not being able to continue the game. If you don't at least get a kill before you die yourself, you don't get enough respawn points in most cases to spawn into another tank, so the game is just done for you right there, and you have to go into the next game, rinse and repeat. You get the point. People that are new to RB, that don't know what they're doing with the tanks, generally are going to have a hard time getting into tank RB just because of that. In AB, heck, you can be as bad as you want, you still get free respawns. As long as you have 3 tanks in your hangar, you get your free respawns, no problem. Another thing, aircraft. Now, whilst you do see aircraft more often in arcade mode, I don't find them to be quite as game-changing as they are in RB. In realistic mode, aircraft are a real force to reckon with, since they can drop bombs with very little delay, or no delay at all, depending on their altitude, which makes precision bombing actually easier in RB than it does in arcade modes. Since in arcade modes, you have at least a 50-second delay. So unless you drop the bombs from very high, if those bombs hit the ground from when they're dropping them from very low, for example, the bombs are going to stay there for at least 10 or 15 seconds, and since the tanks in AB are so much more mobile, you can simply drive out of the blast radius, no problem. Now rocket aircraft are a little bit different. There are sometimes you do get rocket aircraft, but rockets don't really do all that much damage if they don't get a direct hit on, and even in AB, it's about the same difficulty in hitting rockets in AB as it is in realistic mode. Now that being said, I was going to mention that this kind of equalizes things, but it doesn't really. Now in RB matches, we all know those RB matches where one team just wipes the floor with the other team, but oftentimes we still see matches down to the last, just down to the bone really, with the just 3, 2, even 1 player on either side. In AB, I do think that I've noticed more one-sided battles. This is kind of down to the maps being a little bit smaller, the spawns tend to be a lot closer, and the tanks are a lot more mobile as well. So one team just tends to wipe across the map in one motion, just never stopping really, just unleashing the rape train where there are no brakes, and going straight for the enemy spawn capping anyone who tries to respawn there, right? So AB matches tend to be a little bit more one-sided in my own experience, which also makes them a little bit faster. Alright, and finally on to the last point, which is another big gripe many people have with realistic mode, which is tank repairs in general. We all know it's kind of infamous, and it's really a game designer that I don't really understand and that I absolutely object, and that I really pray to Godzilla that this is eventually going to go through the mind, the logic that repair kits and fire prevention equipment should not be modifications that you have to research. It just should not be. They're essential tools. If you don't have fire prevention equipment and you get set on fire, it's a death sentence. The rest of your tank might be fine, and if you add a fire extinguisher, you would still stay alive. But if you don't have that, you're going to die. It's a death sentence. It's like, I don't know, Ebola. You're going to die, right? Same thing with the repair kit. If in RB you don't have a repair kit, or better said, if in RB you are in a stock tank and you get hit by anything, it's pretty much game over for you. Now I do believe that the tracks do repair by themselves, although quite slowly. Your gun doesn't, your turret traverse doesn't, your cannon breach doesn't, so you're fucked. And especially if you are on one of those maps that doesn't have any respawn points, for example. Not respawn points, but base capture circles, since only there you can actually repair. In AB, it's a little bit different. Now, fires will still be a death sentence. You still cannot extinguish fires unless you drive into the water. But unless you don't have water nearby, or you don't have fire prevention equipment, you're not going to extinguish those fires. So it's still a death sentence. Overall damage, however, not really. You can actually, after a bit little of time, you can actually turn your turrets, albeit very slowly. You can still turn your damaged turret. You can still fire with a damaged cannon breach. You can fire with a damaged cannon barrel, and even the crew. If you have the crew replenishment module, if you get reduced to a single crew member and you have one of those crew replenishment thingies left over, it automatically gets activated and you don't die. You just replenish your crew right there on the spot. Actually, you can use that pack anywhere. Now, some might argue that's not really a great thing. In RB, I definitely support the idea of you having to go to a cap circle that's owned by your team if you want to replenish your crew. But in AB, it's nice for tanks that don't have that much crew to start off with, or tanks that, for example, where you only have your gunner and your driver left, but your gunner is but your loader is dead. And you can simply replenish the loader and you have your fire rate back on again. So that's definitely a thing that I actually like in AB. So, do I still recommend tank RB? Yes. Anything up to tier 3, I think tier 3 is about this sweet spot. It really teaches you, tank RB really teaches you to become a better tanker. It forces you to learn proper positioning. It forces you to learn what your tank can do, what the enemy tank can do. It forces you to learn to identify enemy tanks, study their weak spots, compensate for your shot placement, stuff like that. It makes you a better player, right? It just does make you a better player overall. That being said, if you don't want to be a pro player, if you just want to have fun, if you want to grind the stock tank especially, and especially if you don't want to rip your hairs out playing tier 5, hey, just try and shed your pride and try arcade for once. It's really quite fun. Alright guys, and those have been my experiences with arcade mode. Now, remember the promise from the start of the video. If you stuck around until now and if I entertained you, hey, I think I deserve that like, don't I? It really helps the channel out, guys, like, really, really. For the question of today, let's see. Oh, I know. First of all, are you an arcade or a realistic player? And if you are an arcade player, would you mind trying realistic mode? Have you tried realistic mode? What have you not liked about realistic mode? And if you are a realistic player, do you think you're going to try arcade mode after this? I'm really interested to see if people are actually going to try arcade mode and give it a try just to, well, to escape the horror that is tier 5 for realistic tank mode. But this is it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you are new around here, don't forget to click on that subscribe button. And if you are not yet, do join the notification squad so you always get my videos in your sub box. My name is MikeGoesBoom, and thank you very much for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find